I used to sit in my car, my bedroom, anywhere private alone, asking why God was not changing anything in my life, and why nothing was going the way that I wanted it to. My marriage was struggling, my body was wrecked, I felt like trash. My mind was loud and confused and clustered. And every night I would pray and say, God, just help me move, help me make change, help things go better. And nothing really changed and nothing moved until I did. So today we are going to talk a little bit more about faith in action and why sometimes if you pray for change, God's going to give you a shovel. And if you want a hole, you might have to be the one to dig it with the tools that God gives you. So if you want to hear more about that and some helpful tidbits that I've used in my life, stay tuned. Good morning, good evening, wherever you guys are watching or listening from. Welcome to Better Men Daily. Real quick, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and drop a like on this video. It helps boost me in the algorithm. And if you guys are enjoying this content, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And if you guys are listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, hello, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Please give me a follow if you are enjoying these episodes and want to see more of them. Today, we are going to talk about passive faith and active faith. And we're going to talk about what those look like in your life. And we're going to talk about how you can go from being someone who does have faith in God and does have motivation to do things in their life better, but that scale just never moves. And we're going to talk about what it looks like to flip that switch and to move over into a life of action with God. So today we're going to start with talking about, at least in my life, what that passive faith looked like and some of the things that I was feeling. So maybe you guys can do a barometer check to see if maybe you're in the same place that I was so that you guys can hopefully get out of that place with some of this advice that I'm going to give you guys and with some of these findings that I've had in my own life. So just to get into it, I was in a rough place. Even just 6 or so months ago, I was physically in a bad place. I was spiritually in a bad place. I was just all around not doing well. I was eating like crap. I was not sleeping well. I was avoiding hard conversations. I was stuck on scroll holes on social media instead of reading my Bible. I wasn't spending my personal time with God. I wasn't prioritizing my home life correctly. And I really was showing up every day, but I was showing up tired and defeated and just kind of doing the passive thing like I talked about at the beginning of this video and just kind of rolling through and not really doing anything of value. And if you guys are a Christian, you will know that in James chapter 2, verse 17, it says that faith without works is dead. Now, I wasn't living like someone who believed change was coming, even though as a Christian, you do believe change is coming at all times and you need to be prepared for that change. So for me, the tough part was that I didn't really need another sign. I needed a schedule. And so that's how I was feeling, and that's what was going on in my life at the time. And now we're going to talk about the moments that are most times in God's hands, not even your own, where you flip the script or flip the switch and go from being passive to being active. And there's some sort of motivating factor usually behind that. Now, obviously, everyone has their own why and their own thing, and not to say that God and faith is not your motivating factor. Sometimes it is, but sometimes you need an extra kick in the butt. And for me and for you guys watching as men, sometimes that motivating factor that we need is that we got people that depend on us. It is not in our family's best interest for us to not show up as our best selves. And this was kind of my switch flip moment where I realized that my wife was pregnant. And when I realized that I had a son on the way, that was a moment for me that was sobering. And it was a moment that put things into perspective where I realized, hey, like, I don't want to carry all of my bad habits and I don't want to carry all of my bad mannerisms and my bad diet choices and my bad lifestyle choices onto my son. And so from that moment, I decided that I wasn't going to be where I was anymore, however that looked. And that definitely wasn't an overnight process. But before I get ahead of myself, I want to just emphasize that this is a key part of manhood in your faith with God, that responsibility is a form of worship to God for men, that our duty and our service to our family, to our neighbors, and to God is a form of worship. That servant mindset and that servant leadership mindset is a form of worship for God. And it was this moment where, and I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, a lot of people have probably heard this, especially if you spend time around the church, that sometimes in life you're going to pray for a ditch and God's going to give you a shovel. You can't just sit there and not shovel. Sometimes God gives you the tools to get you to where you need to be, but you choose to either do it or not do it. You can't count on God to do all the work. And that's kind of what started it for me. And I started small. Like I said, I started getting up a little bit earlier. I started spending time in my word. And even at first, I started just by tracking my calories and dieting and not even necessarily being in the gym every day. And then that followed. And this is kind of the way that these things snowball when you start taking responsibility as a man in your life. I've noticed that I used to pray for peace, but then I just started making my bed and lifting weights and dieting and reading my Bible, and weirdly enough, peace followed me. So I just want to make sure I'm emphasizing right here that this is not about works-based faith. That's not what I'm saying. This is not even necessarily a salvation or faith conversation for someone who's a Christian. This is stuff for all men who are listening on this channel that may not even be Christian or may not be Christian yet. It's a mindset of sometimes you're going to get the tools in life to do what you have to do or want to see happen, and you're going to have to be the one to pick up the hammer and the chisel, and you're going to have to be the one to put the work in. But God gave you a body, He gave you a mind, He gave you a soul, He gave you personality, He gave you a marriage potentially, He gave you a family. He didn't ask you to bury your talents. He doesn't want you to outsource your obedience. So out of my field findings, and that's what I'm always going to use on this channel is field findings, because like I say in almost every episode, this is I'm coming to you guys from the trenches with you learning. I'm not trying to be some speaking authority on what it is to be a perfect man, because I'm not a perfect man and I'm not there yet, and I'm not even where I want to be yet. But what I have found is that if you build a plan, if you are honest with yourself about your distractions, and you ask God to use your effort and not just your words, then things start changing in your life. And the things I've noticed do change are that your peace returns, your weight lifts, both spiritually and literally. You get healthier, you start feeling like a new person and a new creation, so to speak. And people feel safer around you. You walk stronger. And you don't wait to be rescued anymore. You become the type of man who does the rescuing and that people depend upon. And that's what every man and head of household should be. So the biggest thing that I've learned from everything that I've been going through in the last 6 months and how it's reshaped my faith and how it's reshaped my habits is that you don't need a miracle from God. You need a mirror and you need a mission. So with that, I want to leave you guys with a bit of a challenge in this episode today, and I want you to ask yourself, and this can be a daily question, this can be a weekly, however you want it to be. It could just be a right now question, but I want you to ask yourself, what is one thing that you're praying for that you could actually start working towards as well? So remember, guys, that God is always ready to help you, to guide you, to give you the tools you need. He's just waiting to see if you're ready. Okay, so that's it for this episode, guys. I appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully you found some value out of this. If you guys are enjoying this content, please drop a like if you're on YouTube, and if you are on YouTube as well, please go ahead and subscribe if you feel like you're getting a lot out of this content. And I would appreciate you guys following me on all of the socials, and if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thank you for tuning in, and please follow on there as well. And I really hope you guys are enjoying this content. I've been having a lot of fun putting this out, and it's something that I'm really passionate about, so hopefully you guys are gaining value from it. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. I appreciate you watching or listening, as always, and we will see you in the next one. Take care.